The emergency lights bathed the council chamber in red as Ambassador Velthra stepped through the massive doors. She carried a data pad that felt heavier than any physical weight she had ever lifted. The information contained within would either save her people or condemn them to eternal slavery under the Kretak horde. The Galactic Council Chamber was built to inspire hope. Massive windows showed the stars beyond, reminding all species that they shared this universe together. Flags from 200 civilizations hung from the ceiling, representing millennia of peaceful cooperation. Today, 47 of those flags had black ribbons attached to them. Conquered worlds. Dead civilizations. The Kretak showed no mercy. Velthra's 4 eyes scanned the assembled representatives. Most looked exhausted. Some appeared defeated. A few species had stopped sending representatives altogether, choosing instead to prepare for inevitable conquest. The Arxian coalition, which Velthra represented, had been fighting the Kretak for 6 standard months. They were losing badly. Council Speaker Mordak called the session to order. His voice, usually strong and commanding, sounded hollow through the translation devices everyone wore. Ambassador Velthra, you requested this emergency session. The Council recognizes you. Velthra activated her data pad. Holographic images filled the center of the chamber. Burning cities, refugee ships packed beyond capacity, mass graves that stretched for kilometers. The Council members looked away, but she forced herself to continue. 14 billion souls, she said quietly. That is the confirmed death count. Actual numbers are likely triple that amount. The Kretak do not simply conquer, they exterminate. They enslave. They erase entire species from existence. A murmur ran through the chamber. Everyone knew the situation was bad, but seeing the numbers displayed so starkly made it real. Our combined fleets have engaged the Kretak 17 times, Velthra continued. We have won 0 engagements. Their ships are faster, their weapons more powerful, their shields impenetrable to our technology. 3 days ago, they destroyed the entire 4th Defense Fleet at Proxima Station. 200 ships, 60,000 crew members, gone in 20 minutes. Councillor Jark of the Felonian Empire stood. His scaled skin had turned pale blue, a sign of deep stress among his people. We know the situation is dire, Ambassador, but what can we do? We have already committed every available warship. We have shared all military technology. We are losing because they are simply stronger than us. There is one option we have not explored, Velthra said carefully. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times, but her voice still trembled. One species we have not asked for help. The chamber fell silent. Several representatives leaned forward. No, Jark said flatly. You cannot mean the humans, Velthra finished. Chaos erupted. A dozen representatives tried to speak at once. Some shouted in anger, others in fear. Council Speaker Mordak had to activate the sonic dampeners to restore order. When silence finally returned, Jark was shaking his head vigorously. The Terran isolation protocols were established for good reason, Ambassador. Humans are dangerous, unpredictable, violent. They nearly destroyed themselves in their own world wars before they even achieved space travel. That was 200 years ago, Velthra countered. During First Contact, the First Contact massacre. Every species learned about it in their history classes. When the Galactic Council first discovered humanity, they had made a terrible mistake. The Council, in its arrogance, had sent a subjugation fleet rather than a diplomatic envoy. They assumed humans would be grateful to join the galactic community under Council guidance. They assumed humans would surrender. They were wrong. The human response had been swift and brutal. The Council's fleet of 300 ships had been reduced to 15 survivors. Humanity had then sealed their entire solar system behind a quantum barrier that no sensor could penetrate and no weapon could breach. They had sent one final message: leave us alone or we will leave you in pieces. For 200 years, the Council had respected that barrier. Most species believed humans had destroyed themselves in the intervening time. Others thought they were simply hiding, content to remain isolated forever. A few whispered darker theories about what humanity might be building behind that impenetrable wall. They are savages, another counselor spat. Remember the battle recordings. They used nuclear weapons in space. They rammed their damaged ships into ours rather than surrender. Their soldiers fought until every last one was dead. What kind of species does that? A species that refuses to be enslaved, Velthra said quietly. A species that values freedom above survival. A species that might be our only hope. She pulled up another hologram. This one showed the Fortuna system, where the Kretak were currently massing their invasion fleet. Intelligence reports indicated they were preparing for a final push toward the Council's last major defensive line at Sentinel's Gate, Admiral. Cross commands 300 ships at Sentinel's Gate, Velthra said. The Kretak are bringing 2,000. The battle will be over in hours. After that, there is nothing between the Kretak and our core worlds. My home world of Arxia Prime will fall within a week. How many more billions must die before we admit we cannot win this alone? The chamber remained silent. Every representative knew she was right. The mathematics were simple and brutal. The Council was losing, and losing badly. What makes you think the humans would even respond? Asked a counselor from the back. They have ignored every attempt at communication for 2 centuries. They clearly want nothing to do with us, because we will not be asking them to join our council, Velthra said. We will not be offering them trade agreements or cultural exchanges. We will be sending a distress call, a plea for help from species facing extinction. If there is any compassion in humanity, any sense of justice, they will respond. And if they do not, Shark challenged. Then we die knowing we tried everything, Velthra said simply. The vote was called. The chamber's voting system lit up as each representative made their choice. Green lights for yes, red lights for no, yellow for abstention. The holographic display showed the count rising slowly. The margin was razor thin. When the final vote appeared, green lights outnumbered red by just 8 votes. The measure passed. Council Speaker Mordak looked old and tired as he made the announcement official. By majority vote, the Council authorizes the transmission of a distress beacon to the Sol system. May the ancestors forgive us if we have made a mistake. The distress beacon was prepared over the next 6 hours. It contained footage of Kretak atrocities, tactical data on their fleet movements, and a simple message. To humanity, from the Galactic Council. We once wronged you. We now beg your forgiveness and your aid. Billions are dying. If you have any compassion, please help us. We cannot win alone. The beacon was launched using the most powerful quantum transmitters the Council possessed. It would punch through the human barrier and deliver its message directly to Earth. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Meanwhile, at Sentinel's Gate, Admiral Cross studied his tactical displays with growing despair. His Valyrian species had no concept of surrender, but even he could recognize impossible odds. 300 ships versus 2,000. His fleet included vessels from 20 different species, each with their own weapons and tactics. They had trained together, fought together, and bled together for months. It would not be enough. His second-in-command, Commander Ryla, stood beside him. She was young for her position, promoted rapidly due to the shocking casualty rates among senior officers. Sir, the Kretak fleet has entered the outer system. They will be in weapons range in 72 hours. Have they transmitted their usual demands? Cross asked. Yes, sir. Unconditional surrender, disarmament, and acceptance of Kretak rule. Refusal will result in total extermination. Cross felt a bitter laugh rise in his throat. The same demands they have given every other system. And when those systems surrendered, the Kretak slaughtered them anyway. At least if we fight, we die with honor. Sir, there is something else. Ryla hesitated. We have received word from the Council. They have sent a distress beacon to the human barrier. Cross's forearms tensed. The humans? They are a myth, Ryla. A ghost story we tell children. Perhaps, Ryla said. But the Council is desperate. The Kretak fleet continued its advance. Warlord Thaxel stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Endless Suffering. He was massive even by Kretak standards, standing nearly 3 meters tall. His exoskeleton bore the scars of 100 battles, and his mandibles clicked with anticipation. Status report, he barked. His tactical officer, a smaller Kretak with distinctive red markings, consulted his instruments. The prey has assembled their fleet at Sentinel's Gate, Warlord. Sensors count approximately 300 vessels. Thaxel laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 300? The Council grows desperate. We bring 2,000 ships and they oppose us with 300. This will not be a battle. It will be an execution. Shall we offer them the standard terms, Warlord? Of course. Let them surrender and die as cowards or fight and die as fools. The result is the same. Thaxel loved these moments. The prey always hoped. They always believed they might somehow survive. And then the Kretak would crush that hope completely. The 72 hours passed slowly. The Council held its collective breath. No response came from the human barrier. Sensors showed nothing. Long-range scans detected no movement from the Sol system. Hope began to die. At Sentinel's Gate, Admiral Cross ordered his ships into defensive formation. They would make the Kretak pay for every meter of space. They would fight until their ships were debris and their bodies were ash. But they would fight. Then 36 hours after the beacon was sent, something changed. Every long-range sensor across 3 sectors went dark simultaneously. Not damaged, not jammed, simply blank, as if space itself had stopped existing in those regions. On the Council station, technicians frantically checked their equipment. Everything appeared functional, but the sensors showed nothing. It was as if someone had thrown a blanket over the entire region of space between the Sol system and Sentinel's Gate. Then a transmission came through. Not on standard frequencies, not using standard protocols. It simply appeared on every communication device simultaneously, from military-grade quantum transmitters to basic civilian radios. A human voice speaking in perfectly translated galactic standard, Terran Expeditionary Fleet acknowledging distress call. Maintain current positions. Do not engage. We will handle this. The voice was calm, clinical, utterly confident. There was no emotion in it, no anger or fear. Just cold certainty. Admiral Cross stared at his communications officer in shock. Terrans? The humans responded. Sir, we are detecting spatial distortions. Something massive is approaching. Something that is bending space-time itself. In the Kretak fleet, Warlord Thaxul received similar reports. His tactical officer sounded confused and concerned. Warlord, our sensors are detecting anomalies throughout the system. Unknown energy signatures, massive gravitational distortions. A new weapon? Thaxul demanded. Unknown, Warlord. The readings do not match any known technology. Thaxul dismissed it with a wave of his massive claw. The prey grows desperate and tries to frighten us with sensor ghosts. Continue the advance. We will crush them in... Space tore open. There was no other way to describe it. Reality itself seemed to split apart as something emerged from faster-than-light travel. But this was unlike any FTL transition anyone had ever seen. This was violent, forceful, as if the very fabric of the universe was screaming. Admiral Cross's sensors finally found something they could measure. His display lit up with contact markers. He counted them once, twice, 3 times, certain he was misreading the data. 50 ships. Just 50 ships had emerged from the impossible spatial distortion. Commander Ryla laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. 50 ships? The humans sent 50 ships to fight 2,000. Are they insane? Then the sensor data began providing details, and the laughter died in her throat. Each human ship was the size of a small moon. The vessels defied every principle of engineering the Council understood. They were too large, too massive. The power output from their reactors exceeded theoretical maximums. Their weapon signatures registered off the scale. And they were beautiful in a terrible way, sleek and angular, covered in armor that seemed to absorb sensor beams. They moved with impossible grace for their size, taking up formation with mathematical precision. The largest vessel transmitted an identification code, TS Terran Resolve. Fleet Admiral Jang commanding. Velthra watched the display from the Council chamber, her 4 eyes wide. She whispered what everyone was thinking. By the ancestors, what have we unleashed? The 50 human vessels hung in space like sleeping giants. They made no further transmissions. They did not hail the Council fleet. They simply existed, their presence warping sensor readings across the entire system. Admiral Cross found himself, holding his breath, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Commander Ryla broke the silence on the bridge. Sir, I am reading power fluctuations across the human fleet. They are charging weapon systems. All ships, battle stations, Cross ordered. But hold fire. They said not to engage. We will trust them for now. Trust was a difficult thing. The human ships made no aggressive moves toward the Council fleet, but their sheer size was intimidating. Each dreadnought was easily 10 times larger than the biggest Council vessel. The weapons ports that dotted their hulls were massive, designed to fire projectiles that could level cities. And there was something else, something the sensors struggled to identify. Each ship seemed to be surrounded by a shimmer, like heat distortion, that bent light around their hulls. On the Council station, Ambassador Velthra stood frozen before the holographic display. She had argued for this. She had convinced the council to call the humans. Now, looking at these massive war machines, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The humans had built these ships during their 200 years of isolation. What else had they built? What other weapons did they possess? Councillor Jarque stood beside her, his scaled skin now pale white. "Those ships," he whispered. "They could destroy entire planets." "Let us hope they only destroy the Kreetok," Velthra replied, though her voice shook. Warlord Thaxul studied the human ships with predatory interest. His tactical officer had provided detailed scans, or rather, had tried to. The human vessels seemed designed to defeat sensor analysis. Most readings came back corrupted or incomplete. But Thaxul did not need sensors to understand the situation. 50 ships, his fleet numbered 2,000. The mathematics were simple. "Ridiculous," he growled. "These humans insult us with so few vessels. Do they think size alone will save them? We have destroyed fortresses larger than those ships. We have cracked moons and boiled oceans. What are 50 ships against the might of the Kreetok horde?" His tactical officer hesitated before responding. "Warlord, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessels. Their power output is extraordinary. Perhaps we should exercise caution." Thaxul's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Caution? The Kreetok do not know caution. We know only conquest. These humans dare to enter our war zone? We will teach them the price of arrogance. Order all ships to battle formation. We will crush the council fleet and these human newcomers together." The Kreetok fleet began to spread out, forming a massive crescent shape designed to envelop and overwhelm enemy forces. It was a formation they had used successfully in dozens of battles. 2,000 ships moving as one, their weapons hot, their shields charged. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, and they knew it. Then the human fleet transmitted on all frequencies. Every ship, every station, every communication device in the system received the message simultaneously. The voice was different from before. This was Fleet Admiral Zhang himself, and his tone was cold enough to freeze stars. "Attention, Kreetok fleet. You were warned 200 years ago. The Galactic Council made the mistake of attacking humanity once. We taught them the consequences of aggression. You have ignored that lesson. You have chosen to prey upon the weak, to commit genocide against defenseless species, to spread terror and suffering across the galaxy. This ends now." Warlord Thaxul laughed at the transmission. Bold words for 50 ships. "Human, I am Warlord Thaxul of the Kreetok horde. We have conquered 47 systems. We have destroyed fleets 10 times your size. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Refuse, and we will take days to end your lives." There was a pause. Then Admiral Zhang responded, and there was something in his voice that made even Thaxul feel a flicker of unease. It was not anger. It was not hatred. It was the cold, clinical tone of someone performing a necessary but unpleasant task. "Humanity does not tolerate genocides," Zhang said simply. "You have killed 14 billion souls. You have enslaved entire species. You have committed atrocities that demand justice. We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to posture. We are here to end you." Thaxul roared his rage. "Then die, human. All ships open fire. Destroy them." 2,000 Kreetok warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma cannons glowed white-hot as they fired. Missile pods opened and released swarms of guided warheads. Energy beams capable of melting battleship armor lanced through space. The combined firepower could have destroyed a planet. It converged on the human fleet in a wave of destruction that lit up the darkness of space. The human vessels did not move. Then 1 second before the first weapon would have struck, reality bent. The shimmer that surrounded each human ship suddenly became visible, a field of distorted space that seemed to push the universe itself away. Kreetok weapons struck this barrier and simply vanished, their energy absorbed into whatever exotic physics the humans had mastered. Not a single human ship took damage. On the bridge of the Terran Resolve, Fleet Admiral Zhang watched the Kreetok attack dissipate harmlessly against his fleet's shields. He was a tall man, even by human standards, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. He wore a simple uniform with minimal decoration. He did not need medals to prove his worth. "Shields holding at 98%, reported his tactical officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Park. "Enemy weapons completely ineffective. They have shown their hand," Jung said calmly. "Now we show them ours. All ships weapons free. Execute Protocol Omega." The human fleet opened fire. The weapons that emerged from the massive vessels were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Railguns, electromagnetic accelerators that fired solid projectiles at 95% the speed of light. Each round carried more kinetic energy than a strategic nuclear weapon. The projectiles were invisible to the naked eye, moving too fast for organic senses to track. They simply appeared inside Kretak ships, having passed through shields as if they were not there, and released their terrible energy. 200 Kretak vessels ceased to exist in the first 10 seconds. They did not explode dramatically. They simply came apart, their molecular bonds unable to withstand the kinetic forces. Metal became vapor. Organic material became plasma. 200 warships, each carrying 500 crew members, were erased from reality in less time than it took to draw breath. Admiral Cross watched his tactical display in stunned silence. The red dots representing Kretak ships began disappearing. Not slowly, not one at a time. In clusters, in waves. His sensors showed impossible readings, weapons moving at relativistic speeds. Energy outputs that exceeded small stars. The human ships fired again and again, each salvo perfectly accurate, each shot a guaranteed kill. "By all the gods," Commander Ryla whispered, "they are not fighting, they are executing." More human weapons revealed themselves, directed energy beams that did not simply burn through armor but disintegrated it at the atomic level. Missiles that did not explode but released swarms of nanomachines that consumed everything they touched. And perhaps most terrifying, the point defense systems. Thousands of smaller weapons that tracked and destroyed every Kretak projectile, every missile, every torpedo that came near the human fleet. Nothing got through. Nothing even came close. Warlord Thaxul watched his fleet die. His tactical displays were filled with red warning indicators, each one representing a destroyed ship. The numbers climbed with horrifying speed. 200, 400, 600. The humans were firing with mechanical precision, and every shot found its mark. "Evasive maneuvers," he roared. "All ships, scatter and attack from multiple vectors." The Kretak fleet tried to adapt. Ships broke formation and attempted to surround the human vessels, attacking from all directions simultaneously. It was a tactic that had worked against Council fleets, overwhelming them with threats from too many angles. Against the humans, it simply made them easier targets. The human fleet divided smoothly into smaller groups, each one moving to intercept Kretak ships with impossible speed. The massive vessels should have been slow, but they accelerated like fighters. They should have been clumsy, but they moved with liquid grace. It defied physics. It defied reason. Then the human fighters deployed. Launch bays opened across the human fleet, and things emerged that made Admiral Cross's blood run cold. Not piloted craft, autonomous drones. Thousands upon thousands of them, each one perhaps a tenth the size of a standard fighter. They moved in perfect coordination, swarming around Kretak ships like insects around prey. But these were not simple machines. These were weapons that learned. The drones adapted in real time. A Kretak ship would fire its point defense weapons, and the drones would shift their attack pattern to avoid the shots. A Kretak ship would raise its shields, and the drones would find the weaknesses, the gaps, the vulnerable points. They did not destroy ships with overwhelming force. They dismantled them surgically. A Kretak cruiser found itself surrounded by hundreds of drones. They attached themselves to the hull and began cutting. Not randomly, precisely. They severed power conduits. They breached life support systems. They opened the ship to vacuum without destroying it, leaving the crew to suffocate slowly in the darkness. And then they moved to the next target. "This cannot be happening," Thaxul's tactical officer stammered. Warlord, we have lost over 1,000 ships. Half our fleet is gone. We must retreat. Retreat? Thaxel turned on his subordinate with fury. The Kretak do not retreat. We are the Horde. We are the conquerors of galaxies. We will not flee from 50 enemy ships. Warlord, they are not ships. They are monsters. They are death itself. We cannot fight this. Thaxel raised his claw to strike his officer for cowardice, but the movement died halfway. On the tactical display, another 200 red markers disappeared. 75% of his fleet was gone. Gone. In less than an hour, the mighty Kretak horde had been reduced to a fleeing, panicking mob. All ships, he said, his voice hollow. Full retreat. Jump to hyperspace. Abandon the system. The order went out across the Kretak fleet. The surviving ships desperately tried to activate their faster-than-light drives. They needed to escape, to flee, to put as much distance between themselves and the human monsters as possible. Engines charged. Jump coordinates were calculated. They prepared to vanish into the safety of hyperspace. Nothing happened. Panic turned to terror as Kretak crews realized their FTL drives were not responding. Not malfunctioning. Simply not working. It was as if the fundamental physics that allowed faster-than-light travel had stopped existing. On the bridge of the Terran Resolve, Lieutenant Park reported calmly. Quantum interdiction fields at full strength, Admiral. No ship in the system can achieve FTL transition. Fleet Admiral Zhang nodded. Good. Now they understand. They are not leaving. They are not escaping. This system is their grave. Warlord Thaxel finally felt something he had never experienced in his long career of conquest and brutality. He felt fear. Real. Paralyzing. Absolute fear. The humans had planned this. They had trapped the entire Kretak fleet. The weapons, the shields, the fighters, the interdiction field, all of it had been prepared in advance. This was not a battle. This was an extermination. The humans had come here to wipe out every single Kretak ship, and they had brought exactly the tools necessary to do it. No, he whispered. No, this is not possible. We are the Kretak. We are the unstoppable force. We cannot end like this. But the human weapons continued to fire. The drones continued their surgical dismantling. The massive human dreadnoughts moved through the Kretak fleet like predators through a herd of prey, selecting targets and destroying them with casual efficiency. Admiral Cross found himself unable to look away from his tactical display. The battle was no longer displayed. It was a massacre. A systematic, ruthless, emotionless massacre. The humans showed no hesitation, no mercy, no humanity. Sir, Commander Ryla said quietly. Should we withdraw? This is not our fight anymore. No, Cross said. We stay. We bear witness. The galaxy needs to know what happened here, what humanity is capable of. In the council chamber, the representatives watched the live feed in absolute silence. Some were horrified, some were relieved, all were terrified. Ambassador Velthra had tears streaming down her face. She had asked for this. She had begged for human intervention. Now she watched as they delivered exactly what she had requested. Absolute, total, overwhelming victory. And it was only the beginning. 4 hours after the first human shot was fired, the Kretak fleet had been reduced from 2,000 warships to less than 300. Those that remained were battered, damaged, and desperately trying to survive. The humans had not slowed their assault. If anything, they had become more efficient as the battle progressed. Warlord Thaxel sat in the command chair of his flagship, watching his empire crumble. The endless suffering had taken multiple hits from human weapons. Life support was failing. Hull breaches sealed themselves automatically, but the ship's repair systems were overwhelmed. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically, but their efforts meant nothing. The humans were everywhere and they were unstoppable. Communications, he croaked, his voice barely functional. Open a channel to the human fleet. All frequencies. His communications officer looked at him with 3 of her eyes. The 4th had been lost when a console exploded earlier. Warlord? Do it, Thaxel commanded. The channel opened. Human fleet, this is Warlord Thaxel. I request parley. We surrender. Cease fire, please. The word please tasted like poison in his mouth. The Kretok did not beg. They did not surrender. But pride meant nothing when facing extinction. The transmission went out and Thaxul waited for a response. It came 30 seconds later. Admiral Zhang's voice was unchanged, still cold and clinical. Your surrender is noted and rejected. You showed no mercy to the 14 billion souls you exterminated. You will receive the same consideration. We made a mistake, Thaxul said desperately. We were wrong to attack the Council species. We will withdraw from all conquered territories. We will release all slaves. Name your terms. Any terms. Just stop killing us. There are no terms, Zhang replied. You are not prisoners of war. You are rabid animals that must be put down. This is not a negotiation. This is justice. The channel closed. Thaxul stared at the dead communication panel. Justice. The humans called this justice. He thought of all the species the Kretok had conquered, all the cities they had burned, all the lives they had ended. For the first time in his life, Thaxul understood what his victims had felt. Helpless, terrified, awaiting death with no hope of escape. The human dreadnoughts continued their work. They moved through the debris field that had once been the pride of the Kretok military, hunting down survivors with ruthless efficiency. The massive ships were beautiful in a terrible way, their hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. They looked like sculptures, art pieces, not instruments of war, but they killed with a precision that was almost artistic in itself. Lieutenant Park studied her tactical display aboard the Terran Resolve. Admiral, enemy fleet strength now at 12%. Estimate complete elimination in 90 minutes at current rate. Maintain current engagement protocols, Zhang ordered. I want every Kretok warship in this system reduced to atoms. No survivors. No witnesses. No mercy. Yes, sir. Zhang stood and walked to the observation window that dominated one side of his bridge. Beyond the transparent aluminum, space was filled with the debris of war. Kretok ships broken and burning, human drones swarming like schools of predatory fish. The light from weapon discharges created a constant flickering illumination. It was horrific and mesmerizing. His second-in-command, Commander Williams, approached quietly. He was an older man, a veteran of humanity's internal conflicts before the First Contact massacre. Sir, the Council fleet is holding position. They are broadcasting their gratitude. Gratitude, Zhang said softly. They called us because they were desperate. They will fear us once this is over. Is that a problem, sir? No, fear is honest. Fear keeps people from making stupid mistakes. The Council attacked us 200 years ago because they did not fear us. They thought we were primitives who would welcome subjugation. We taught them otherwise. Today we teach the Kretok the same lesson. Williams nodded. The Kretok warlord is still transmitting pleas for mercy. He is offering to surrender all conquered territories, release all prisoners except any conditions. Ignore him. His fate was sealed the moment he decided to commit genocide. We are not here to accept surrender. We are here to eliminate a threat. Admiral Cross watched the slaughter continue from his position at Sentinel's Gate. His crew had stopped cheering long ago. In the beginning, when the humans first arrived and destroyed 200 Kretok ships in seconds, there had been jubilation, victory, salvation. But as the hours wore on and the humans simply continued killing, the mood had changed. Commander Ryla was trembling. Sir, they are not stopping. The Kretok are trying to surrender. They are broadcasting on all frequencies, but the humans are not listening. Would you listen? Cross asked quietly. If you were the humans, if you remembered that the Kretok killed 14 billion people, would you accept their surrender? Ryla had no answer. The human fighters, the autonomous drones, were performing functions that made even hardened soldiers sick. They were not simply destroying Kretok ships. They were dissecting them. A swarm of drones would attach to a Kretok cruiser and systematically cut it apart. First, they would breach the engine room, leaving the ship powerless. Then life support. Then communications. The Kretok crew would be alive, trapped in a dead ship, waiting for the atmosphere to run out or the hull to finally breach completely. It was psychological warfare taken to an extreme level. One Kretok destroyer tried to ram a human dreadnought in a desperate final act. The destroyer accelerated to maximum velocity, its captain choosing death in combat over slow suffocation. The destroyer struck the human ship's shields and crumpled like paper. The human vessel did not even shift from the impact. It simply continued on its course, weapons still firing as if nothing had happened. In the council chamber, representatives were beginning to argue. Councillor Jark was shouting at Ambassador Velthra. This is what you wanted? This slaughter? The humans are monsters. They are worse than the Kretuk. The Kretuk killed 14 billion people, Velthra shouted back. 14 billion. They enslaved entire species. They were coming to do the same to us. Yes, the humans are terrifying. Yes, their methods are brutal. But they are saving us. At what cost? Jark demanded. We have unleashed something we cannot control. What happens when the humans decide we are next? Who will save us from them? We pray we never give them a reason to attack, Velthra said coldly. We pray we learn from this and never commit the atrocities that brought their wrath down on the Kretuk. Council Speaker Mordak tried to restore order, but the chamber was in chaos. Half the representatives wanted to thank the humans. The other half wanted to flee before the humans turned on them. None of them could look away from the holographic display showing the ongoing massacre. Warlord Thaxul's flagship finally took a critical hit. A human railgun round punched through the failing shields and struck the reactor core. The endless suffering had seconds before the containment fields collapsed and the entire ship became a miniature star. Thaxul looked around his bridge at his surviving crew. They had served him loyally for years. They deserved better than this. Abandon ship, he ordered. All hands to escape pods, go, now. His crew looked at him in shock. Warlord, that is an order. Go, they fled. Thaxul remained in his command chair. He had led his people to this disaster. He would face the consequences. The reactor reached critical mass, and the endless suffering exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the local star. Warlord Thaxul, conqueror of 47 systems, slayer of billions, died instantly, but his crew did not escape. The human drones tracked every escape pod and destroyed them methodically. No survivors, no mercy, just as Admiral Zhang had ordered. 6 hours after the battle began, it ended. The last Kretuk ship, a small frigate that had been trying to hide in the sensor shadow of a destroyed dreadnought, was located and eliminated. The human fleet ceased fire. The sudden silence was deafening. For 6 hours, space had been filled with the sound of weapons and explosions and dying ships. Now there was only the quiet hum of human engines. Admiral Zhang surveyed the battlefield. 2,000 Kretuk ships reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Not one had escaped. Not one had surrendered successfully. The interdiction field had ensured that. Lieutenant Park, status report. All enemy vessels destroyed, sir. 0 survivors detected. Our fleet suffered no casualties. Shield integrity across all ships remains above 90%. Ammunition expenditure at 42%. Drone losses negligible. Mission successful. Good. Signal the Council fleet. Inform them that Sentinel's gate is secure. The transmission reached Admiral Cross's ship. The old Valerian read it twice, unable to believe what he was seeing. Sentinel's gate is secure. Kretuk fleet eliminated. Maintain position. Terran fleet is proceeding to liberate occupied systems. Proceeding to liberate? Commander Ryla repeated. They are not stopping. Admiral Zhang addressed his fleet. All ships prepare for quantum jump. We are moving to the Fortuna system. Intelligence reports indicate Kretuk staging bases on Fortuna 4 and Fortuna 7. We will eliminate those bases and proceed to the next occupied system. We will not stop until every Kretuk military installation has been destroyed. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace. And this time there was no dramatic tearing of reality. They simply faded from sensors, moving faster than light toward their next target. The interdiction field collapsed with their departure, and space returned to normal. Admiral Cross looked at his tactical display. It showed nothing but debris and the slowly dispersing energy signatures of destroyed ships. Send a message to Council headquarters. Tell them the battle is over. The humans won. And tell them, he paused. Tell them we have seen the future of warfare and it is terrifying. In the Fortuna system, Kretuk forces were celebrating their recent conquests. They had no idea what was coming. The human fleet arrived without warning, dropping out of hyperspace directly above Fortuna 4. The planet housed a massive Kretuk military complex built into the mountains. Millions of Kretuk soldiers were stationed there, along with production facilities for ships and weapons. Fleet Admiral Zhang studied the planet from orbit. Commander Williams, deploy the Stellar Lance. Yes, sir. The Terran Resolve rotated slowly, bringing its ventral weapons array to bear on the planet below. The stellar lance was a weapon that had never been used in actual combat. It had been developed during humanity's isolation, tested on lifeless moons and asteroids, refined over 2 centuries of research. Now it would show the galaxy what human engineering could achieve. The weapon charged. Energy gathered from the dreadnought's massive reactors, focused through exotic matter lenses, shaped by magnetic fields that could crush matter into degenerate states. When it fired, it was not an explosion. It was a beam of coherent energy that could cut through anything. The beam struck Fortuna 4's surface and penetrated. Through rock, through metal, through the planetary crust itself. It found the military complex buried miles underground and vaporized it. Not destroyed, vaporized. Millions of tons of rock and metal and Kreetak soldiers simply ceased to exist, converted to plasma by temperatures exceeding the surface of a star. But the stellar lance did not stop there. It continued downward, burning through the planet's mantle, destabilizing tectonic plates. Fortuna 4 began to die. Massive earthquakes rippled across the surface. Volcanoes that had been dormant for millions of years erupted simultaneously. The planet's magnetic field collapsed. Within hours, Fortuna 4 would be uninhabitable for centuries. The human fleet moved to Fortuna 7 and repeated the process. And then they jumped to the next system. And the next. And the next. Over 18 days, the Terran Expeditionary Fleet reclaimed 47 star systems. They did not occupy planets. They did not negotiate with local Kreetak commanders. They simply arrived, destroyed every military target, and moved on. Kreetak forces tried to resist. They tried new tactics. They tried to flee. Nothing worked. The human fleet was unstoppable. In the council chamber, representatives watched the progress with mixed emotions. On one hand, entire species were being liberated from Kreetak occupation. Billions of people were free. On the other hand, the humans were demonstrating military capabilities that exceeded the Council's worst nightmares. Ambassador Velthra found herself unable to sleep. Every night she would watch the reports of human victories. Every night she would see the casualty figures. Not Council casualties, not civilian casualties, Kreetak casualties. The humans were killing Kreetak by the millions, and they were doing it efficiently, quickly, without hesitation. This is what we asked for, she told herself. This is what we needed. But late at night, when she was alone, she wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. The humans were saving them. But who would save them from the humans? The 18th day of the human campaign brought them to the Krakor system, where the Kreetak had established one of their largest fleet construction facilities. Orbital shipyards circled Krakor Prime like a metal ring, each one capable of building a dozen warships simultaneously. Intelligence reports suggested 200 Kreetak vessels were currently docked there, undergoing repairs or final construction. Fleet Admiral Zhang studied the tactical display with his usual calm expression. The shipyards were impressive, he had to admit. The Kreetak were not stupid. They had built redundant systems, multiple defense platforms, and positioned their facilities in orbital patterns that made simultaneous attacks difficult. Against any other fleet, these defenses would be formidable. Commander Williams, what is our drone inventory? Zhang asked. Current count is 84,000 operational units, sir. We have expended approximately 16,000 over the past 18 days. Deployed 20,000 drones. I want those shipyards reduced to scrap metal. Prioritize targeting the construction bays. Any ship that is more than 50% complete is to be destroyed immediately. Yes, sir. The human fleet released its swarm. 20,000 autonomous drones poured from the launch bays, moving in coordinated patterns that resembled schools of fish or flocks of birds. They approached the shipyards from multiple vectors, adapting their flight paths in real time to avoid defensive fire. The Kreetak defense platforms opened up with everything they had, but the drones were too small, too fast, too numerous. The drones reached the shipyards and began their work. They cut through hull plating with precision lasers. They infiltrated command centers and detonated internal power systems. They severed the docking clamps holding partially built warships in place, sending the vessels tumbling into the planet's gravity well. Within 2 hours, the orbital infrastructure that had taken the Kreetak decades to build was nothing but floating debris, Admiral. Cross had accompanied the human fleet after Sentinel's Gate. Admiral Zhang had not invited him, but he had not refused when Cross requested permission to observe. Now Cross stood in the observation deck of his ship, watching the destruction of Krakor's shipyards with a mixture of awe and horror. Commander Ryla stood beside him. "Sir, at this rate, the Kretok will have no capacity to build new ships within a month. The humans are not just defeating them. They are eliminating their ability to make war entirely." "That is the point," Cross said quietly. "The humans learned their lesson 200 years ago. When they fight to ensure their enemy can never threaten them again. They do not believe in half measures. Sir, there are civilian workers on those shipyards, millions of Kretok who are not soldiers." Cross looked at her. "Did the Kretok spare civilians when they conquered our worlds? Did they show mercy to the families they enslaved? The humans are delivering exactly the justice the Kretok earned." Ryla had no response to that. She watched the drones continue their systematic destruction and tried to feel satisfaction. The Kretok had killed so many of her people. Her own family had died when the Kretok invaded her home colony. She should be happy to see them suffer. But she felt nothing except a hollow emptiness. In the council chamber, the debates had become increasingly heated. Some representatives argued that the humans should be stopped, that their campaign of destruction had gone too far. Others insisted that the Kretok deserved everything they were getting. Ambassador Velthra found herself defending the humans more and more, even as she struggled with her own doubts. "The humans are following galactic law," she told the assembled council. "The Kretok committed genocide. The punishment for genocide is species-level sanctions, including complete military disarmament. The humans are simply enforcing those laws. They are doing far more than that," Councillor Jark snapped. "They are destroying entire planets. They are killing millions of Kretok. This is not justice. This is revenge. Call it what you will," Velthra replied. "But ask yourself this. Would you prefer the humans had not come? Would you prefer we were all slaves to the Kretok right now?" The chamber fell silent. Nobody could argue with that point. The humans might be terrifying, but they had saved the galaxy from certain conquest. The human fleet jumped to the next system and the next. They developed a routine: drop out of hyperspace, scan for Kretok military targets, deploy drones or use ship-based weapons, eliminate all targets, jump to the next system. They moved like a machine, efficient and emotionless. No celebrations when a system was liberated. No mourning for Kretok casualties. Just cold, calculated military action. On the 32nd day, they reached the Helix Nebula, where the Kretok maintained a massive prisoner-of-war camp. Intelligence reports indicated that over 2 million slaves from various species were held there, forced to mine rare minerals from the nebula's protoplanetary disks. The camp was guarded by 50 Kretok warships and orbital defense platforms. Fleet Admiral Zhang made a rare personal communication to his fleet. "All ships be advised. There are friendly civilians in this system. Precision strikes only. I want every Kretok military asset destroyed, but not one slave is to be harmed. Understood?" Affirmatives came back from all 50 human vessels. Zhang trusted his crews. They were professionals. But this was a delicate operation. The prison camp was integrated with the mining facilities. Destroying one without damaging the other would require surgical precision. The human fleet engaged the Kretok defenders. It was over in 40 minutes. 50 Kretok warships against 50 human dreadnoughts should have been an even match. It was not even close. The Kretok ships were destroyed so quickly that they barely had time to return fire. The orbital defense platforms fell next, their weapons useless against human shields. Then the drones went in. They approached the prison camp carefully, identifying Kretok guard towers, weapons emplacements, and command centers. They struck with pinpoint accuracy. A guard tower would simply cease to exist, vaporized by a precision laser strike. A weapons platform would be disabled by a swarm of drones cutting through its power systems. The Kretok guards tried to resist, but they were overwhelmed in minutes. The slaves watched in astonishment as their captors were systematically eliminated. Many of them had been imprisoned for years, some for decades. They had lost hope of ever being free. Now ships the size of moons hung in orbit above them, and small machines were killing their masters. When the last Kretok guard fell, Admiral Zhang transmitted to the prison camp. "This is Fleet Admiral Zhang of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. You are free. Council rescue ships are en route and will arrive within 6 hours. Medical supplies and food are being delivered now. You are safe." The transmission was met with silence at first. Then slowly the slaves began to realize it was real. They were free. Some collapsed in tears. Others simply stood in shock. unable to process what had happened. Human drones began delivering supply crates filled with food, water, and medical supplies. The drones did not approach the slaves directly, staying at a respectful distance, allowing the freed prisoners to take the supplies at their own pace. Admiral Cross observed the rescue operation and felt something shift in his opinion of humanity. Yes, they were capable of terrible violence. Yes, they killed without mercy, but they also cared about the innocent. They had taken enormous care to free these slaves without harming them. There was something almost contradictory about it. Humans could be monsters and saviors in the same breath. The human fleet continued its campaign. They liberated 23 prison camps across 12 systems. They destroyed 47 Kretok military bases. They eliminated 800 Kretok warships. The Kretok horde, which had seemed unstoppable just weeks ago, was collapsing. In the Kretok High Council chamber on their capital world, panic had replaced pride. The Supreme Matriarch, eldest and wisest of the Kretok leadership, watched reports of defeat after defeat. Her mandibles clicked in agitation as military advisors delivered increasingly dire news. The humans have reclaimed 47 systems, General Krath reported. We have lost over 3,000 ships. Our military production capacity has been reduced by 70%. Morale among our forces is collapsing. Crews are abandoning their posts. Some ships are surrendering without firing a shot. Surrender? The Supreme Matriarch hissed. The Kretok do not surrender. They do when facing the humans, Krath said bitterly. The humans do not take prisoners. Our soldiers know that surrender means death, but fighting also means death. At least surrender is quicker. The Supreme Matriarch slumped in her throne. How did this happen? We conquered 47 systems in 6 months. We were unstoppable. Then 50 human ships arrive and our entire empire crumbles in weeks. We underestimated them, another counselor said. We thought their isolation made them weak. We were wrong. They used those 200 years to advance beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen. Their weapons, their ships, their tactics, all of it is centuries ahead of everyone else. What do we do? The Supreme Matriarch asked. It was the first time in her long life she had ever asked that question without knowing the answer. We have one option, General Krath said quietly. We call for peace. We surrender unconditionally. We beg for mercy. The humans do not show mercy, another counselor objected. They kill everyone. You said so yourself. They kill soldiers and military targets, Krath corrected. But the freed slaves from the prison camps report that humans delivered supplies and medical care. Perhaps if we surrender completely, if we offer no resistance, they will spare our civilian population. The Supreme Matriarch was silent for a long moment. Then she made her decision. Transmit a message to the human fleet. Inform them that the Kretok High Council requests an immediate ceasefire. We will discuss terms of surrender. The transmission was sent. It reached the human fleet within hours. Fleet Admiral Zhang read it in his private quarters aboard the Terran Resolve. He read it 3 times, making sure he understood every word. Then he composed his response. To the Kretok High Council, your request for ceasefire is acknowledged. The Terran Expeditionary Fleet will cease hostilities when we arrive in your home system in 72 hours. Prepare for our arrival, Fleet Admiral Zhang. The Supreme Matriarch received the response and felt a flutter of hope. 72 hours. The humans were coming, but they would talk. Perhaps the Kretok species could survive this disaster. Perhaps there was hope. But she did not understand humans. Zhang had not agreed to a ceasefire. He had simply stated when he would arrive. The human fleet continued its operations, destroying 2 more Kretok military installations and eliminating another 37 ships. They did not slow down. They did not show mercy. They simply executed their mission with mechanical efficiency. When the 72 hours passed, the human fleet arrived at Kretok Prime. The planet was beautiful from orbit, covered in blue oceans and green continents. Massive cities spread across the surface, home to billions of Kretok civilians. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet, though their crews had been ordered not to fire. The human fleet took up positions around the planet. 50 massive dreadnoughts, their weapons trained on the surface. The Supreme Matriarch transmitted from the planetary surface. Human fleet, this is Supreme Matriarch Velsha of the Kretok people. We surrender. Unconditionally. We will meet any terms you set. Please do not destroy our world. Fleet Admiral Zhang responded personally. Your surrender is accepted. These are our terms. Complete demilitarization of all Kretuk forces. Destruction of all military ships, weapons, and installations. Permanent human monitoring of your planet. Reparations to every species harmed by your conquests. And finally, your civilization will be restricted to pre-space flight technology. You will not leave your planet for the next 200 years. The terms were harsh, devastating. They would reduce the Kretuk from a galactic power to a primitive, isolated species. But they would survive. The Supreme Matriarch accepted immediately. We agree to all terms. Thank you for sparing our people. Do not thank us, Zhang said coldly. This is not mercy. This is justice. You will spend the next 200 years remembering what you did and why you are being punished. And if you ever try to reach the stars again with weapons in your hands, we will return. And next time we will not stop at demilitarization. We will end your species completely. Do you understand? Yes, the Supreme Matriarch whispered. We understand. The human fleet remained in orbit for 3 weeks, supervising the destruction of Kretuk military assets. Warships were dismantled. Weapons were destroyed. Production facilities were shut down. The Kretuk did not resist. They had learned their lesson. 5 human dreadnoughts would remain permanently in orbit, watching, waiting, ensuring compliance. When the demilitarization was complete, Fleet Admiral Zhang addressed the Galactic Council. The Kretuk threat has been neutralized. All occupied systems have been liberated. All military targets have been eliminated. The Terran Expeditionary Fleet is returning to Sol System. The Council erupted in celebration. Species that had been enslaved were free. Worlds that had been conquered were liberated. The nightmare was over. But Ambassador Velthra did not celebrate. She watched the human fleet prepare to depart and felt a cold certainty settle in her hearts. The galaxy had been saved, but it had also learned a terrible truth. Humanity was not the hero of this story. They were the monster that ate other monsters, and everyone prayed they would never become prey. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Kretuk space, preparing for their final jump back to Sol System. 45 dreadnoughts would return home. 5 would remain behind. Eternal guardians ensuring that the Kretuk never again threatened the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Zhang stood on the observation deck of the Terran Resolve, looking at the stars. In 6 weeks, they had accomplished what the Galactic Council could not achieve in 6 months. They had broken an empire and freed billions. Commander Williams approached quietly. Sir, the Council has requested a formal meeting before we depart. Ambassador Velthra specifically asked to speak with you. Zhang nodded. Very well. Arrange a secure transmission. I will speak with her from here. The holographic projector activated and Ambassador Velthra's image appeared. She looked exhausted, her 4 eyes dimmed with fatigue, but she maintained her dignity as she addressed the human admiral. Fleet Admiral Zhang, on behalf of the Galactic Council and all freed species, I thank you. You saved us from certain destruction. We did what was necessary, Zhang replied. Nothing more. Still, we are grateful. The Council wishes to hold a formal ceremony in your honor. We would like to invite you to our chambers to recognize your achievements publicly. Zhang shook his head. That will not be necessary, Ambassador. We did not come here for recognition or glory. We came because you called for help against genocide. We answered that call. Now we return home. Velthra hesitated. The Council also wishes to discuss future relations. Perhaps humanity would consider joining the Galactic Council. Your military capabilities combined with our diplomatic experience could create lasting peace. No, Zhang said flatly. Humanity will not join the Council. I see. Velthra's disappointment was visible. May I ask why? Zhang was silent for a moment, choosing his words carefully. 200 years ago, the Council sent warships to Earth, not diplomats, not traitors. Warships. You intended to subjugate us to make us servants in your galactic empire. We defended ourselves. We drove you away. Then we sealed our system because we understood a fundamental truth about the galaxy. What truth? Velthra asked quietly. That the Council's peace is built on weakness, Zhang said. You maintain order not through strength, but through mutual agreement not to be too aggressive. It works when everyone is roughly equal. But when someone like the Kretuk appears, someone stronger and more ruthless, your system collapses immediately. You cannot defend yourselves because you have forgotten how to fight. Velthra stiffened. We have not forgotten how to fight. We simply choose diplomacy first. Diplomacy only works when both sides want peace, Zhang countered. The Kretuk did not want peace. They wanted conquest, and your fleets were utterly unprepared to stop them. You lost 300 ships at Proxima Station in 20 minutes. In comparison, we destroyed 2,000 Kretak vessels at Sentinel's Gate in 6 hours, and we suffered 0 casualties. You have superior technology, Velthra argued. We have superior doctrine, Zhang corrected. When humanity fights, we fight to win completely. We do not seek fair fights or proportional responses. We seek overwhelming victory that ensures our enemies can never threaten us again. The Council finds this approach disturbing. You prefer to win battles and then negotiate peace. We prefer to crush our enemies so thoroughly that peace becomes the only option. Velthra was quiet for a long moment. You are right. We do find your methods disturbing. The destruction you caused, the lives you took, it goes against everything the Council stands for. And yet you called us, Zhang said. You called us because your methods were failing. You called us because 14 billion people were dead and billions more would follow. You called us because you needed someone willing to do what you could not. You needed monsters to fight monsters. Is that how you see yourselves? As monsters? Zhang's expression did not change. We see ourselves as necessary. The galaxy is not a safe place, Ambassador. It never has been. Peace is not the natural state of the universe. Peace is something that must be protected, enforced, maintained through strength. The Council forgot that. We have not. So you will not join us. You will return to your isolation. Not entirely, Zhang said. Humanity is willing to offer the Council a treaty. A mutual defense pact with specific conditions. Velthra leaned forward. What conditions? The Council will maintain its current structure and laws. Humanity will not join the Council and will not submit to Council authority. However, if any Council species faces an existential threat, a threat that could lead to species extinction or mass enslavement, you may call us. We will respond. That is generous, Velthra said carefully. There is more, Zhang continued. When we respond, we will have complete military authority. The Council will not question our methods or our tactics. We will do what is necessary to eliminate the threat, and we will do it our way. When the threat is neutralized, we will return to Sol System. We will not occupy territory. We will not demand tribute. We will simply go home. You want to be the galaxy's protectors, but on your own terms. We do not want to be protectors, Zhang corrected. But we recognize that if species-level threats emerge, the Council cannot handle them alone. We are offering insurance. Hope that if another Kretak horde appears, there is someone who can stop them. Velthra considered this. And if we refuse this treaty? If we decide we do not want humanity's protection? Then we go home and seal our barrier again, Zhang said simply. And the next time a threat emerges, you will face it alone. The choice is yours, Ambassador. The transmission ended. Velthra sat in her private quarters staring at the blank screen. The human offer was both generous and terrifying. Protection from existential threats, but at the cost of allowing humanity to wage war however they saw fit. No oversight. No restrictions. Just cold, brutal efficiency. She brought the proposal to the Council the next day. The debate lasted for hours. Some representatives wanted to accept immediately. Others argued that they should refuse and take their chances. Councillor Jark was particularly vocal in his opposition. We cannot accept this treaty, he declared. It gives humans too much power. They could abuse this arrangement, use it as an excuse to interfere in galactic affairs. The humans do not want to interfere, Velthra countered. They want to be left alone. This treaty actually protects us in 2 ways. First, it ensures they will help if we face extinction. Second, it ensures they will only act when we specifically call them. They are not interested in conquest or expansion. How do you know that? Shark demanded. Because they said so? We saw what they are capable of. We saw how easily they destroyed the Kretak. What if they decide the Council itself is a threat? What if they turn those weapons on us? Then we would already be dead, Velthra said bluntly. If humanity wanted to conquer the galaxy, they would have done it already. They have the military power. They have proven they can defeat any fleet we could assemble. The fact that they are offering a defensive treaty instead of demanding submission should tell us everything we need to know about their intentions. The vote was called. This time the margin was wider. 2/3 of the Council voted to accept the treaty. The terms were finalized over the next week. Humanity would remain behind their quantum barrier. The Council would only call them in cases of species-level threats. When called, humanity would have full military authority. When the threat was eliminated, humanity would return home. The treaty signing was held aboard the council station. Fleet Admiral Zhang attended via hologram, unwilling to physically leave his ship. Ambassador Velthra represented the council. Both placed their signatures on the digital document, and it became galactic law. "One final thing, Ambassador," Zhang said before the transmission ended. "Make sure your people understand what they have agreed to. If you call us, we will come. We will eliminate the threat completely. We will not be gentle. We will not be kind. We will be effective. Your people need to accept that if they call us, they are accepting the consequences of our methods." "I understand, Admiral," Velthra said, "and I hope we never have to call you again." "As do I," Zhang said quietly. "But if you do, we will be ready." The human fleet jumped to hyperspace. 45 dreadnoughts vanished from sensors heading back to Sol system. The quantum barrier that had protected humanity for 200 years remained open just long enough for them to pass through, then sealed itself once more. Humanity returned to isolation, and the galaxy let out a collective breath. In the weeks that followed, the freed systems began to rebuild. The Kretak, true to their word, remained confined to their home planet. Their orbital monitors detected the 5 human dreadnoughts that hung in perpetual orbit, silent guardians ensuring compliance. The Kretak did not complain. They did not protest. They simply accepted their punishment and tried to rebuild their civilization without the military might that had once defined them. Admiral Cross returned to his duties with the Council Defense Fleet. He found himself training young officers differently now. He taught them about the human doctrine of overwhelming force. He showed them recordings of the Battle of Sentinel's Gate and made them understand that sometimes violence delivered swiftly and completely was more merciful than prolonged conflict. Many officers struggled with this philosophy. It went against everything the Council had taught them. But Cross was patient. "You do not have to like it," he would tell them. "You do not have to agree with it, but you must understand it. Because one day you might face an enemy that will not stop, will not negotiate, will not surrender, and on that day, you need to know how to fight like a human." Ambassador Velthra spent her time traveling to the freed worlds. She saw the joy of species liberated from Kretak slavery. She saw children who would grow up free, who would never know the fear of conquest. She saw monuments being built, not to the Council or its fleets, but to the human vessels that had saved them. Some species called the human saviors. Others called them necessary evil. None could deny their effectiveness. One day, she visited a colony that had been enslaved for 5 years. The locals had built a memorial, a massive sculpture depicting a human dreadnought breaking chains. Velthra stood before it, looking up at the ship rendered in metal and stone. A young child recently freed approached her. "Are the humans really that big?" the child asked in broken galactic standard. "Their ships are," Velthra replied. "The humans themselves are about my size. Will they come back?" the child asked. "If bad things happen again?" Velthra knelt down to the child's eye level. "Yes. If something very bad happens, if monsters come like the Kretak, the humans will come back. They promise to protect us. Are the humans good?" the child asked. Velthra paused. It was a simple question with a complicated answer. "The humans are strong," she said finally. "They do what is necessary to protect the weak. Whether that makes them good or not, I cannot say. But they saved you, and that is what matters." The child nodded and ran off to play with other freed children. Velthra watched them go and felt tears forming in her eyes. These children had a future now. They would grow up free. They would have opportunities their parents had been denied. And it was all because humanity had answered a desperate call for help. Months passed. The galaxy slowly returned to normal. Trade routes reopened. Diplomatic relations were re-established. The Council began implementing new military doctrines, learning from both their failures and humanity's successes. They would never match human firepower, but they could at least ensure they were not as helpless as they had been against the Kretak. On Kretak Prime, the Supreme Matriarch stood at a window in her palace looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, 5 human ships watched her world. She could not see them, but she knew they were there. Eternal, patient, waiting for any sign that the Kretak had forgotten their lesson. She thought about the empire her people had built. 47 conquered systems, billions enslaved, trillions in plundered resources. It had all seemed so important, so necessary. The Kretak had believed they were the rightful rulers of the galaxy. that their strength gave them the right to dominate weaker species. Then the humans had arrived and shown them what real strength looked like. The Kretak had been strong. Humanity was stronger. The Kretak had been ruthless. Humanity was more ruthless. Every advantage the Kretak had enjoyed was matched and exceeded by human capability. The Supreme Matriarch finally understood the lesson humanity was teaching. Power without wisdom led to destruction. Conquest without consideration of consequences led to ruin. The Kretak had been predators. Then they met a bigger predator and learned what it meant to be prey. She hoped her people would remember this lesson for the next 200 years. Because if they did not, if they tried to rebuild their military and reach for the stars with weapons in their hands, the humans would return, and next time there would be no mercy, no surrender. A full year passed since the human fleet departed. The galaxy had settled into a new normal, one defined by the knowledge that humanity existed and was watching. The treaty with the Terran government was displayed in every council chamber, a reminder of both protection and warning. Most species went about their lives with relief, grateful that the Kretak threat was eliminated. But those in power, the diplomats and military leaders, carried a different burden. They knew the truth that the general population did not fully grasp. The galaxy had not been saved by the Council. It had been saved by something the Council could not control. Ambassador Velthra found herself unable to fully return to normal diplomatic duties. She had become something of an expert on humanity, the one counselor who had direct communication with Fleet Admiral Zhang. Other species would come to her with questions, fears, and theories about the humans. She answered what she could, though her knowledge was limited. Humanity remained an enigma, powerful and distant. One evening, she received an unexpected transmission. The quantum signature identified it as coming from the Sol system. Her 4 hearts raced as she accepted the communication. Fleet Admiral Zhang's hologram appeared in her office, and for the first time, she noticed details she had missed before. He looked tired. Lines creased his face, and his gray hair had more white in it than she remembered. He carried the weight of his decisions visibly. "Ambassador Velthra," he said with a slight nod, "I hope I am not disturbing you." "Not at all, Admiral," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is unexpected. Is something wrong? Has a new threat emerged?" "No, nothing like that," Zhang said. "I am contacting you personally outside official channels. What I am about to tell you cannot be shared with the Council. Not yet." Velthra felt cold dread settle in her stomachs. "I am listening." Zhang was quiet for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "Do you know why humanity sealed itself away 200 years ago, Ambassador?" "The real reason?" "The First Contact Massacre," Velthra said. "The Council attacked and you defended yourselves. Then you isolated to avoid further conflict." "That is partially true," Zhang admitted, "but there is more to it. When your fleet attacked Earth, we were forced to respond with everything we had. We used nuclear weapons in space. We rammed damaged ships into yours. We fought with a desperation and ferocity that horrified your people. What the Council did not understand was that we horrified ourselves as well." Velthra leaned forward, hanging on every word. "Humanity has a dark history, Ambassador. Before we reached the stars, we spent thousands of years fighting each other. Wars that killed millions, weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came very close to exterminating ourselves multiple times. By the time the Council found us, we had achieved a fragile peace. We thought we had evolved beyond our violent nature. Then your fleet arrived, and we discovered that violence was still within us, just sleeping." "You were defending your home," Velthra said quietly. "Yes, but the ease with which we returned to total warfare frightened us. After the Council fleet retreated, our leaders debated what to do. Some wanted to pursue your fleets and destroy the Council entirely. Others wanted to join the galactic community and prove we could be peaceful. A third group argued for isolation, time to truly understand ourselves and ensure we would not become the monsters we had been in our past. The third group won," Velthra observed. "They did. We sealed Earth behind a quantum barrier not to hide from the galaxy, but to protect the galaxy from us. We spent 200 years advancing our technology, yes, but we also spent 200 years examining our nature, understanding why violence comes so naturally to us, learning to control it rather than be controlled by it." "And did you succeed?" Velthra asked. Zhang's expression was grim. "We learned to channel it, to direct it, to use it only when absolutely necessary. But we did not eliminate it. We cannot eliminate it. It is part of what makes us human. When you sent that distress beacon, we debated for days whether to respond. Some argued that the galaxy was not our responsibility. Others said that if we did not help, we were abandoning the principles we claimed to value. What convinced you to come? A simple truth, Zhang said. The Kretak were committing genocide. If we did not stop them, who would? The Council could not. No other species could. Only humanity had the capability and the will to do what was necessary. So we came, and we did what we do best. We waged total war. Velthra understood now. You are not proud of what you did. Pride is the wrong word, Zhang said carefully. I am satisfied that we saved billions of lives. I am satisfied that the Kretak threat has been neutralized. But I am not proud of the killing. No sane person should be proud of war, even necessary war. What troubles me, Ambassador, is how easy it was, how naturally it came to us. We had 200 years of peace, and within days we were killing efficiently and without hesitation. That is what keeps me awake at night. You did what the Council could not, Velthra said. You saved us. And we frightened you in the process, Zhang replied. I have read the Council debates. I know half your representatives wanted to reject our treaty because they fear us. They are right to fear us, Ambassador. Humanity is dangerous. We always will be. The best we can do is ensure that danger is directed at those who threaten the innocent, rather than the innocent themselves. Why are you telling me this? Velthra asked. Because someone in the Council needs to understand the full truth, Zhang said. The treaty we signed is not just about protecting you from external threats. It is also about protecting you from us. By limiting our involvement to existential threats only, by requiring you to call us rather than acting on our own initiative, we are placing constraints on ourselves. Humanity needs those constraints. Without them, we might convince ourselves that we should take a more active role in galactic affairs. And that would be a mistake. You do not trust yourselves, Velthra said slowly. We trust ourselves to do what is necessary in the moment, Zhang corrected. We do not trust ourselves with permanent power over others. History has taught us that humans with unchecked power become tyrants. The quantum barrier, the limited treaty, the refusal to join the Council, all of these are safeguards, not just for you but for us as well. Velthra was silent, processing this revelation. The humans were not simply being modest or isolationist. They were actively restraining themselves because they recognized their own capacity for destruction. It was both reassuring and terrifying. Reassuring that they had that self-awareness. Terrifying that they believed they needed such extreme measures. There is one more thing I must tell you, Zhang continued. The ships we brought to your war zone, the weapons we used, those represent approximately 30% of humanity's total military capability. Velthra felt her stomachs clench. 30%? 50 dreadnoughts out of 173. 20,000 combat drones out of over 70,000. The stellar lances we use to neutralize planetary targets are our medium-range weapons. We have larger ones, much larger. We brought what we calculated was necessary to defeat the Kretak with minimal human casualties. If we had needed more, we had more available. Why tell me this? Why frighten me further? Because you need to understand what you are protected by, Ambassador. The Council is safe not because humanity is benevolent, though we try to be. The Council is safe because we have the capability to defend you against any threat, but also because we have chosen to limit ourselves. We are the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, and we have voluntarily agreed to use that force only when called upon for existential threats. That choice is what makes us different from the Kretak. The Kretak sought to conquer. You seek to protect. We seek to be left alone, Zhang corrected gently. But we will protect when necessary because that is the right thing to do. Just remember, Ambassador, that our protection comes with a cost. Not tribute or territory, but knowledge. The galaxy now knows that when humans fight, we fight to eliminate threats completely. That knowledge will deter some potential aggressors, but it may also create fear and resentment. You may find that some species trust you less because you are associated with us. I accept that cost, Velthra said firmly. The alternative was extinction. I would rather be alive and feared than dead, Zhang nodded. Then we understand each other. This will be my last direct communication with you unless you call for help. Humanity is returning to our isolation. We will monitor galactic events from behind our barrier, but we will not interfere unless called. The 5 dreadnoughts watching Kretak Prime will remain as long as necessary, But they are automated systems, no human crews, just machines ensuring compliance. Will we ever see humans again? I mean, in a peaceful context? Not as warriors, but as fellow civilized beings. Zhang's expression softened slightly. Perhaps in time. If humanity can prove to itself that we are truly in control of our nature, maybe in another 100 years or 200 years, we will emerge and join the galactic community as full participants. But not yet. We are not ready. The galaxy is not ready. Let the memories of this war fade first. Let younger generations grow up knowing humans as distant protectors rather than efficient killers. Then maybe we can be friends instead of feared saviors. I hope I live to see that day, Velthra said. As do I, Ambassador. As do I. Take care of your galaxy. We will be watching. The transmission ended. Velthra sat in her office for a long time, staring at the space where Zhang's hologram had been. She finally understood humanity. They were not conquerors or saviors or monsters. They were all of those things and none of them. They were a species struggling with their own nature, trying to be better than their history suggested they could be. And they had succeeded, at least partially, by recognizing their flaws and working to contain them. The galaxy had been saved by a species that feared itself. That was both the most hopeful and most terrifying thing Velthra had ever learned. She never told the council about Zhang's communication. Some truths were too heavy to share. Instead, she continued her work as ambassador, helping to rebuild the galaxy that humanity had saved. And every night she looked up at the stars and thought about the humans behind their quantum barrier, watching, waiting, hoping they would never need to fight again but prepared to do so if called. In the Sol system, Fleet Admiral Zhang stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth. The blue and green planet turned slowly beneath him, peaceful and beautiful. He thought about the Kretak, about the thousands of ships his fleet had destroyed, about the millions of lives ended by human weapons. He thought about the freed slaves and the liberated worlds. He wondered if the cost had been worth it. His aide, a young officer named Chen, approached. "Sir, final casualty reports from the campaign. 0 human fatalities, 47 liberated systems, estimated 600 million Kretak military and civilian casualties, 2.3 billion freed slaves." Zhang absorbed the numbers. 600 million dead, more than the entire population of Earth during humanity's ancient history. He had killed more sentient beings in 6 weeks than most species would encounter in their entire lives. And yet those deaths had saved billions more. The mathematics were clear. The morality was not. "Thank you, Chen," he said quietly. "File the reports and seal them. Classification level maximum. Future generations can judge our actions. We are too close to them to be objective." "Yes, sir. Sir, if I may ask a question?" "Go ahead." "Do you think we will ever be called again? Will there be another threat like the Kretak?" Zhang looked at the stars beyond Earth. "I hope not. But if there is, we will be ready. That is our curse and our duty, Chen. To be ready to kill in service of protecting the innocent. To be monsters when monsters are needed and to remain hidden when they are not." "It sounds lonely, sir." "It is," Zhang admitted. "But loneliness is preferable to becoming the evil we fight against." The Kretak were powerful and used that power to enslave others. Humanity is more powerful and uses that power to free others. The difference is in the restraint. Never forget that, Chen. Our strength is not in our weapons or our ships. It is in our choice not to use them unless absolutely necessary. The quantum barrier sealed itself completely, and humanity returned to silence. The galaxy continued turning. Species continued living, and the Kretak remained imprisoned on their world. The treaty existed, a promise of protection and a warning against aggression. And somewhere behind an impenetrable barrier, humanity watched and waited, hoping their weapons would rust from disuse but keeping them sharp and ready just in case. The story had ended. The war was over. Peace had returned. But everyone who had witnessed the human fleet in action knew the truth. Peace existed because something terrible was willing to defend it. That was the new order of the galaxy. Not ruled by strength, but protection through overwhelming capability, held in check by conscious choice. Ambassador Velthra would spend the rest of her life carrying that knowledge. Admiral Cross would train generations of officers to understand it. The freed slaves would build monuments to it, and the Kretak would fear it. Humanity had changed the galaxy not by joining it, but by showing what was possible when violence was directed with precision and purpose, rather than wanton cruelty. The humans were gone, but their lesson remained. The galaxy was safer not because monsters did not exist, but because bigger monsters were willing to protect the innocent. It was not the peace the Council had envisioned. It was not the harmony they had preached. But it was real, and it was stable, and it was enough. In her private moments, Velthra would sometimes wonder what humanity was doing behind their barrier. Were they building more weapons? Were they exploring their own system? Were they simply living in peace, having earned their isolation through their service? She would never know, but she took comfort in knowing they were there, watching, ready to answer if the call ever came again. And in the deepest parts of her heart, she prayed that call would never be necessary, because if humanity ever needed to return, it would mean something terrible had happened, something the Council could not handle, something that required the very monsters they had unleashed once before. The treaty remained. The barrier remained. The 5 dreadnoughts remained in orbit above Kretak Prime, silent and eternal, and the galaxy learned to live with the knowledge that true power was not in conquest or domination, but in the choice to protect rather than to rule. That was humanity's gift and humanity's burden, and the galaxy was better for it, even if it was also more afraid. Fear and gratitude, terror and hope, all mixed together into a new understanding of what strength truly meant. The story had ended, but its lessons would echo through the ages, shaping galactic civilization in ways both profound and subtle. Humanity had arrived, saved the day, and departed, and in doing so, they had fundamentally changed what it meant to be powerful in a universe full of species struggling to survive. The new order had been established, not through conquest or negotiation, but through overwhelming demonstration of capability tempered by conscious restraint. The galaxy had been saved not by heroes but by monsters who chose to protect rather than prey, and that choice made all the difference.